Alright guys, so I hope you had a good Monday. Today was a pretty wild day in the markets, especially if you were doing anything related to AMC or GameStop. However, that's not the focus of this video. This video is going to cover how I did on futures today, and we're going to look at all of these signals on NQ, and I'm going to explain to you the signals that I took and how I was able to scalp these different signals to finish with over $1,300 spread across 4 different performance accounts with Apex Trader funding. So I'm going to go through all of these. There were 4 signals that I want to talk about. Now the first one is not actually in the market session. It's here at 9:10 a.m. This is pre-market, but I still want to go through it because I think it's really important to talk about how to identify when to take a PR signal and then when not to take a PR signal given the specific criteria that happened here. And so I want to talk about this one specifically. So let's take a look at what's happening and just break it down piece by piece. So you can see that we're in a steady uptrend here. Every time we're pulling into the clouds and then closing back above the clouds, we're seeing a push to the next overhead resistance. So let's take a look at this. So here we close into the clouds. Once we close above, we get a push. Pull back into the clouds, close above on a green candle, push to resistance, close above, push, close above, and then we would expect another push to the upside, which we got here. Now, this is important because what I'm trying to illustrate here is that we have a steady uptrend, and every time we're pulling back into the clouds and we're closing back above, we're getting a bounce. Here, we never closed back above the clouds. We closed into the clouds, and then we dumped into this support area, and then we ended up closing back above, and we never actually flipped bearish on our EMAs. But here we get this PR signal, and I want to talk about this PR signal in depth. So this is a bearish PR signal, so it's indicating we could have a pullback. Now, the important thing to note here is we already had a pullback. Not to mention that, but we know that from our system, the PR signal target is the EMA cloud. Well, look at it. We're already on the EMA cloud, right? So we're already at the take profit area of the signal. So it actually makes 0 sense to take this signal because you're targeting where you already are. So you're entering where you should be exiting. So it kind of is a fallacy. It doesn't really make sense. Not only that, but we just talked about how every time we've pulled into the clouds, held the clouds, and then closed above, we've seen some nice continuation to the upside. So that's happened most times, and so we don't want to take that risk right here. And the main thing is here that we're already at the profit target, right? So we're already in the clouds. Doesn't make sense from a risk to reward standpoint. And then you'll see here on the next candle, we actually end up doing what we expected to happen, which is a retest of the same area of resistance slash supply from before, which you'll see we end up doing on basically all of these closes above the EMA clouds. So just want to explain that one in detail and the reason why I didn't take that signal. Now let's talk about the actual signals that happened during the day, okay? So right away, you'll see the opening candle is this bearish engulfing candle that dumps below our EMAs, VWAP, and our auto support. And then you'd expect a push down to the 200 EMA, which we get here, but it's not before we pull back and reject the EMAs here and then form this this lower low. And then, I've seen what happened with SPY. I took shorts on SPY to pre-market low, and so I do remember we get a nice push to the downside here. So I think on NQ, I would see at least a push into this demand area, which you see and then a slight bounce here, but we're still making lower lows. This is a more bearish candle. This larger candle body here. You're not seeing any indication that the selling is slowing down. And then here we're getting a little bounce with a bottom wick there on this area here. So we could see a bounce after this. We're a little bit exhausted on this downtrend. So you'll see a pullback here after we base above and retest this demand area. We do have a VWAP and the EMAs here, so let's see if we can get some continuation for some more upside or if we reject. Alright, so it looks like we now close inside the EMAs, and it looks like we are finding some support here on the 200 as well as VWAP, and it looks like we could be consolidating a little bit to form maybe a bull flag if we can hold above this area and then maybe look for a push into the next overhead resistance area, which you would see probably this pivot point there on that bottom of that candle wick. Okay, so we get a push to the upside. Looks like the flag is continuing, and then it looks like we get this close above here. So a nice little bounce from the bottom there, but still, okay. It looks like we're forming somewhat of a an evening start here, but we are holding the EMA and 200 EMA and VWAP. Looks like a little bear flag that pushes back into the 200 EMA. So we're kind of trading in a little bit of range here. I'm not really seeing anything that I would want to take on a trade. You may be able to get away with just scalping these holds of the VWAP and the 200, but ultimately there's no signal here. So let's wait until we get an actual signal, and then let's act on that. It's important to note how strong the 200 EMA is, as well as VWAP here. I mean, these are just, it's acting kind of like, if you think of it like a floor here, right? If I kind of like draw a zone between these two, that's kind of what it's acting like here. We have some strong support below, and yet we have some overhead resistance. So we were kind of stuck in a little channel until we break in either direction. Again, you know, we've rejected this resistance from before. If we want to draw a little zone here, we can. Looks like a dump. And then look at this. This is the same region that we tested before and got a big bounce, and now we're actually getting a PR signal. So for this PR signal, I'm just looking to scalp into the EMAs, right? So I'm looking for just like a little decent upside push, about 9 points on NQ, which is a significant little gain there. And then of course we're risking this area down here. Now I'm very careful. I only took one contract because this is a very large bottom wick, and therefore our stop is pretty high there. So I'm only in one contract here, and I'm just looking for a push to the upside. Small pullback. I can actually kind of see a support here that we formed from earlier, which I'm using to validate my bounce thesis here. You see this area of support that we're holding. So let me move this over to the side so it doesn't block the view too much. All right, retesting that same support level. It's holding, and then boom, we get my target, and then I take out my contract there. So here, this is a nice gain. If we kind of take it from the beginning of the candle there to the top of that candle, it's about almost 11 points on ES. So nice little gain there. So I'm all out there because, you know, again, that's past our target now that we're hitting our resistances. Now we did close above, but I'm still all out of my position because I still adhere to it. You'll see we'll make a nice push to the upside, and then we're back at the same area of resistance. So I'm curious to see if we get some sellers stepping in here to push us back down. All right, we're trying again here. And look at that little tweezer top projection of the same supply area before pushing back down. Shit. I went a little bit too quick there. Anyway, so let's go to the short signal, right? This is the second signal of the day. So if you follow me and you know my system, this is a very easy, very typical A+ setup that we love to see, right? So let's take a look what's happening here. We have this tweezer top rejection of our intraday supply. This is the third rejection of this area. Each time in the past has seen a nice push back into this support area, right? We rejected here, dumped into the support, rejected here, dumped into the support, and actually even lower. So now we're seeing the same thing here, but we're also getting a sell signal. We see that we closed below VWAP, 200 EMA, our EMA clouds. Almost no bottom or top wick on this. It's almost all strong selling pressure the entire way through. I like the volume increase here, validating this push down. And of course, I'm just looking to scalp to the next level of support. And then ideally, if you want to hold one of your contracts through, if we crack through that level to this final area where I would take all my profits because we bounced here twice in the past. And you can see our stop here is going to be VWAP, and if the EMAs are below VWAP, we can use EMAs as our stop. So anyway, you'll see the next candle just absolutely obliterates all of the price targets. Huge candle there. Off of this short signal, this entire move was 30 points. So that is $600 for each NQ contract if you held all the way through that candle. I'll go ahead and remove the drawings there. Actually, let's bring them back because there's some good levels I drew there. Anyway, so went past our targets and actually ended up retesting this area of double demand, and that area held, and then we bounced basically a V reversal back to the upside. All right, we're pulling back. You see that after we rejected the 21 EMA and 200 EMA here, we dumped back into demand, held that demand, and then bounced again. So again, we have a great signal here, a great signal there, and then we're going to see if we can actually kind of see that this was our intraday pivot where we bounced into this area of resistance and then pulled back. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that on my chart. All right, look at that. Once we rejected VWAP and 200 EMA, we pulled back down into this level of support. Again, rejections of VWAP, pull back into support, support holds. So we're kind of just chopping around here, right? There's not anything that I really care to see. And then we get this little buy signal. So with this buy signal, there's not a lot of room. This is really a tiny scalp that I took. So ultimately, I'm looking to go back into this area of supply where we had a pivot here, and that I don't want to try to hold through this area of supply because that could be, we could require a lot of force to break through that. So what I'm looking for is this tiny little scalp into the upside, and because my risk or my reward is small here, my risk is small as well. I'm just going to stop out if we close below VWAP because we saw here when we closed below VWAP, we kept getting a push down, right? So again, I'm just looking for a small little scalp into supply, stop below VWAP. All right, we get stopped here on this candle, and so that's a small little loss there, and then you see that we actually end up closing back above VWAP, forming this bull flag, and then I actually enter again with a slightly better entry here, right? So this is, I like this entry a bit more. It's a little bit lower. We have the bull flag confirmation. Now I'll tell you, typically I make my stop a close below the clouds. At this point I made it, a close below VWAP just because my upside reward was so small. But again, I like this entry, and so I actually ended up re-entering here and making up that loss and getting some profit on this next candle up, which you can see goes straight into supply for a nice move to the upside. You'll see this is kind of why I typically will make my stop a close below the clouds, because usually when we get these long or short signals, we kind of pull back into the clouds, and that gives us kind of like a little launch pad if we hold it to go to the upside. And anyway, we ended up hitting that supply area, taking our profits, and then no shock there. Tweezer top into supply, and we dump below. So I think the day is almost over here, and one more candle, and there we go. So there's a recap of today's price action on NQ. This looks kind of ridiculous. Hopefully that was helpful. It gives you guys an idea of how I scalp price action on futures, and yeah, have a good day.